You'd mentioned last week about how this is the future of all IEs doing the program.
Data is. Yeah.
Dr. KK, I just got out of class with him just now.
Yeah.
He basically spent some time today saying that exact same thing.
Yeah, I think we've all woken up to that, you know. Of course, you probably heard it from me.
I mean, so what do you think we should really emphasize? I mean, I like data and how you model it and stuff like that. I'm interested in that. But like, eventually we're all going to be doing automation. So do you think thinking industrial was not a great idea? Or,
no, we are the ones who will be doing it. Truthfully, industrial systems engineers are the ones who are going to be doing all that effort for us. But I don't think you'll see us being just, what you'll see more is what I would call interdisciplinary graduate degrees. Mm-hmm. You know, people taking maybe if your love is to actually hook up equipment and all that, you would take something like computer engineering or something like that over in the electrical engineering department. If your thing is about doing analysis, operations research, you know, and data sciences, right now, IE departments tend to be the ones to do that. But you're going to see in the future more data degrees, just dedicated data sciences. You go to the big universities like MIT, Stanford, they actually have masters in operations research. So there are specialized masters that people have been doing. But anything to do with data sciences, I think that's the future for us. Anything to do with automation, that's the future for us. There'll always be, you know, some level of traditional industrial engineering, especially I would say the next 10 years, it'll be pretty slow for the smaller manufacturing companies to be able to do this, because of the expense that's involved, you know. But I think a lot of companies, the major companies, they're already digital transformation. You hear that all the time. You know, we're trying to transform our factories. When I was young, we called it paperless factory. I mean, really, not a lot has changed as far as the concept goes, but what's really changed is the idea of how do we actually utilize data throughout the life cycle, and how do we make things highly integrated with each other? So that's why, again, you know, you won't learn all that in this class, obviously, you know, but a combination of this and production systems and analysis of decision processes and your OR classes together will give you a kind of a taste of it, you know, and you'll probably be able to go out and do some entry-level jobs with that background. But I'm telling everybody already, if you really want to play heavy in the game, you're going to have to go for your master's degrees. That's all there is to it. It's going to be a while before all the subjects basically trickle into the undergraduate curriculum. And that's why, you know, universities spending a lot of money right now to develop this digital transformation initiative that they're doing, and put together a data sciences certificate program with the hope that having a master's in that. I keep hearing from the dean that they're looking at putting a college of computation together here at the university, which would be awesome. It's about the only thing we're really missing right now in order to do this, play in this game. So hopefully that will happen. How am I doing on time here? Gotta be getting pretty close. Yep, let's go. Well, welcome back. I hope you guys had a good lab session last Thursday, and then you're caught up. And what I'm doing tonight will be kind of boring to you because you've already done it. But in between things, I hope you pick up some gems and some nice tips and all that. A couple of you actually have contacted me about things you saw in other, already looking ahead in the next lesson and all that, and the compiled versions, some things I had in there. What's that all about? Okay, I'm going to talk about those things tonight a little bit. All right, some of them are not required. At the same time, if you want to try to use them, you're more than welcome to. Okay, so I'll hit a couple of those features as we go through it. Rather than do exactly what I did in the tutorial video, I'm going to do that tutorial, but I'm going to do it a little bit different and there's some things I really want to point out as I go through it, but the order of things on this one, I'm going to do it a little bit different than what I did in the video. In the video, I basically went through each of those fields that are in the table one by one, did everything on every one of them. This time I'm going to do some things on all the tables, and I'm going to go back and do some other things, and I'm going to do some other things, just so I could talk about the subject that's involved in each one of them, all right? So I got to get in here and share my screen again. Aziz, while I'm firing it up, is there anything you wanted to say?
I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Yeah, I always want to give you a chance every class in case something's come up that you need to let everybody know about. So I'm going to open up the compiled version of this tutorial. I hope you've done that already. And you can see this is a table that's already established. I'm going to have to hide your faces because you're getting in my way again, unfortunately. So here's a table that's already been developed, and I've actually compiled this so that you can't get in and see the design view of it. But you do have a lot of the functionality at the top that you need to do to manage records. Sometime I'm going to show you how to do this during class when we get closer to applications. But we have a field where, you know, we get our record identifier always, which is our primary key field, but then we have an alternate key field called ShockerID, right? These are required values for each record, and they're unique for each record. So I can use that as my alternate key. And then I got information like the home address, the name of the person, the home city, the region that they live in, a home country. And you can see on those, the home region and the home country, it actually has on this one for a new record, it's already populated with Kansas and USA. That's because most of the students going to Wichita State are from Kansas and from the United States of America. So we may as well just put that in there, and whoever needs to, if somebody's doing a lot of typing, putting a lot of records in here, we save them a little bit from having to enter those in. We call those default values. And you can see we got some other stuff. We got an email address here, and there's a thing that says what their gender is and their birth date. And on the birth date field, we got this little pop-up that actually brings a calendar up. That's nice. U.S. citizen, they either check it or leave it unchecked, whatever. Their SAT score, which is a number. And we have things to constrain these. You know, we have a rule on each one of these fields. It says it has to be greater than 0 and less than whatever the upper limit is on that. And I'll show you that. We're going to create a validation rule. And there's validation rules across fields. For instance, there's a secondary score GPA, I'm sorry, secondary school GPA, and we have a secondary school GPA scale. And what we'll want to do is we want to compare that to make sure that this isn't exceeding the scale of this by more than 1. And I'll tell you why that is when we get to there. We have a matriculation fee, which is a currency field, and I decided to use dollars. You could use euros, whatever else. Again, I'm going to say that that has to be a positive number. A matriculation date, we saw how we could put a range on dates last time, and we'll do that again, a department, all that. But beyond the validation rules that we'll be seeing, there's other things that we could do, other properties that we could set. For instance, department. In Wichita State, the departments have at least 3 characters in them and could have up to 5. So I built actually a template on here that if they try to put more than 5, it won't let them do it. There's a thing called notes here where it's just a memo field. I'll show you that when we get over there. We'll actually build one and all that. And then there's an attachment for photos, another memo field, called a long text field for notes. This could put as many characters in here as you want. You can put pictures in here, whatever. It actually has a little editor that you can use to do all that, and we'll play with that a little bit here. Another attachment for just general thing, and then data revision. If I ever make changes to the record, I can make a note right there to say what I did. So it's a nice little data sheet. You can see at the top, remember last time when we did our first tutorial, these were very cryptic names. They were the names of the fields that I basically put in there. These are very readable, right? This is a caption that actually, if you don't supply a caption, it'll use the name of the field. Otherwise, it'll use the caption. And we will always, always, always build a caption on every field we create. Okay. So having said that, let's actually get into the tutorial and start working it. So it's T01-02, your name. Take that again, and I'm going to copy it and paste it and put my name on it. So I've got the original one. If in case I screw it up, I can start over. And all right. So here we go. Now I'm going to open that up. And again, when you first open a file after you've created it, you're going to get this enable content thing. Always hit that, turn it on. Don't do a lot of work before you do that. You could lose it, okay? Just hit enable, make it something you automatically do. Now, I've already named the subject table for you. The subject is student, okay? Now, we're going to have lots of students, obviously, but as I said, we always make the subject singular because we're talking about what each record represents. So each record represents a student. TBL, again, is the prefix for a table object, a subject table object, okay? So when you bring up, you'll see on the homework assignment and all that, when you bring it up, the second homework assignment we got for this next one, you'll see it says TBL and then in parentheses subject, capitalized, okay? What you want to do is remove the parentheses and put a subject for the table there. So this subject is student. All right, we're going to go in design view now. Now, I've already built all the fields for you. All right, you will usually do this yourself, most of them, okay? There's some that will be there automatically. Automatically, when you create a subject table and you use the subject and you use that object, you will have auto star dash record identifier. That will be there. You don't have to ever do anything to that. That's your primary key field. It's set for you. Never rename it. Never do anything else to it. Keep it the primary key. Just don't mess around with it. Leave it as it is. You'll notice at the bottom you have these ones here that says mem star dash notes, att star dash attachments, and mem star dash data revisions. Don't ever take those out. Don't ever rename those. Leave them there for now, okay? Because those, later on when we learn how to attach a form to our table, those fields will already be on the form. Okay, so if you get rid of them here, you'll have basically controls for things that don't exist in your table. If you get rid of this one, it won't even attach to the form. You will have no functionality whatsoever, all right? The other field that you'll get is a field for your alternate key. The field right now that's the alternate key in here is this one that says txtStudent-ShockerID. All right, there'll be a template there that will say txt and then in curly brackets subject, then a dash, and then in another curly brackets field. Okay, and that's what you do. Whatever you name the table student, you use here as the subject. That's your subject student, and then the field name. I know that's a bit of typing, but trust me, you will be glad you did it this way, all right? This makes things very readable and very easy to debug, especially when you start using the other objects that are going to be working with the table. This will make a lot more sense to you while you do this, okay? And it's really not hard to do. And I give you a lot of examples to show you the things you could do. For instance, home address, make it one word like that, you know, and you can make the capital letter to signify you got another word, okay? Or you can use an underscore, like here, USA citizen. You could do that, okay? Never leave a space in the name, ever. Don't ever leave a space in the name. And I know I've said a couple of these things already, but believe it or not, next week I will get a whole bunch of sorry about that, I need to turn it off. Next week I will get a whole bunch of homework assignments where the people just ignored all that. In fact, I'll get some where they've ignored the conventions completely, and I will ignore them completely, and they get a 0. All right, so you will use these naming conventions, both the object and on the fields. You'll use these naming conventions. All right. Now, again, what I did on the, yeah, go ahead.
It might be useful to explain why you shouldn't have spaces in your names, because that may not be immediately apparent to a lot of people.
You shouldn't have a space in the name because it will be used as a reference, and if there's a space, it will stop the reference where the space begins. Okay? So in other words, if I said student-shocker space ID and I tried to reference that, it would read it as student-shocker. That's it. The ID would be ignored. All right. So that's one of the reasons. There's actually several reasons to do it, but just trust me, do that right now, okay? As we go through the class, a lot of these things I'm just telling you to trust me to do right now will become more apparent to you, okay? All right. So in the tutorial, I basically went through each one of these at a time. What I'm going to do here first, though, is I'm going to go through the data types and just set them, all right? Now, you might notice these are all set to short text, except when you get down here and you got an attachment. Plus, you might also notice that there's actually a field that's not on here, and that's an attachment for photos. And there's a reason for that, and I'll explain that when we get down to the attachments here. But ShockerID is a short text field, so it's fine. Name. Now, I hope you printed it off. I am using that table specification table to see what the values of all the properties on the fields are, okay? And so right now, when I look at that, I see that the ShockerID is a short text field, okay? But let me put it there just so you can see it, okay? There's ShockerID. Look down here. See how it says Shocker Space ID? That's the caption that you'll see at the top of the column now. So I did put a space there. That's okay. It's just text. It's just a caption, all right? But this, you need to think about it as if it's a variable. You know, that's one way to say that, why you don't have a space in there. Think about this as if it's a variable. You know, when you're programming, you didn't put space in the names of variables. It doesn't work usually. Some programming languages might allow it, but most have trouble whenever you put a space in it, okay? And by the way, there are other reasons why we're using these conventions. I'll give you another one, all right? Access has a lot of reserved words. And sometimes you could use that one of those, if you weren't using this prefix and the name of the table, you may use one of those words as a field name, and then Access doesn't know how to handle it later on. You may get errors where you think, well, I named it, you know, it's connected correctly. Everything looks, you know, yeah, but you used a reserved word. One that I've seen a lot is type. Believe it or not, type is a reserved word. A lot of times you will have a subject table where you want to categorize it on a field called type. If you just type in type, you'll have a problem. Name is another one. Name is a reserved word. I have name up here. If I had just typed in name, that wouldn't work in some forms that we're going to do. The other thing people ask me sometimes is, why are we putting the subject table name in here? Because we could have this same field name in different tables. Name, for instance, is a common one. You might see for students. Maybe I have a table for professors. They'll have a name. You know, type could be in multiple tables. And later on, when I want to refer to it, if I just say type or name, Access won't know which one I'm talking about, and it'll bring back whichever one it finds first. And you may end up working in a table you never meant to work in, all right? So this really makes sense. And I'll tell you, I did not invent this. Yeah, I refined it quite a bit over the years. But this is something actually Microsoft developed. And they highly recommend that people who are using Access follow this, and yet very few people do. I don't think many people even know this exists. I've gone to conferences and shown just the naming conventions and have gotten unbelievable responses from people all over saying, that is just what I've been looking for. Can I use that? Truthfully, if you ever got a job as a software engineer, naming conventions are something you tend to use a lot, not just for databases, but for naming variables, for naming binary objects, anything, you know. So just get used to doing them. It's a worthwhile thing to do. And I know it takes a little bit more typing, but it's worthwhile to do it. All right. So anyway, I'm going down this list here. Again, I have the ShockerID. It's short text. Name is short text. All these are short text all the way until I get down here to where I got, and you can tell by my prefix, HYP. That's a hypertext field. So right away, let's set this one to hypertext. Now this is the most important property for any field, is next to its name is its type. All right. We have short text, we have long text, we have numbers, and in numbers there's different flavors of numbers. There's date and time, currency, again, different flavors on them. Auto number, you should never, ever, 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 ever use that for any other field except the primary key field. And again, it's set for you all the time. So you never have to worry about that one. Yes, no, and that's an interesting one, yes, no, and I'll talk about that in a little while when we get to a yes, no field. The OLADA object, we may use once or twice later on in the semester. It's been pretty much replaced by attachment, so we won't use it very often. Hyperlink, yeah, we'll use it, but the truth is there's a better way of doing hyperlinks than what Access has built into it, and I'll show that as we go through the class. Attachments, I am starting to get away from. I'm going to show you how to build an attachment field, but I want you to know I have had so many problems over the years because of attachment fields, and I really don't understand why Microsoft would want you to attach anything to a database anyway, because it just takes up a lot of space. Again, I'll tell you more about attachments when we get to that field here. Then there's this thing called calculated field. It's evil. Microsoft should never have put this in here. It violates normalization of data. Don't ever use it, okay? I'll tell you at some point what it does, because we'll do something similar the right way using what we call derived fields and derived controls. But don't ever use that. And then the lookup wizard, don't ever use that either. You will never have to build a relationship using the lookup wizard in this class. I'm going to give you things that have the relationships already established. All right, so we have the hyperlink field here. Again, this is a short text. This is a date time field right here, the birth date. So I'm going to make it date time. Yes, a field could be both the date and time at the same time. U.S. citizen, and I usually always put a question mark on those just because it's a yes-no thing. So yes, no on that. Here's a number field, and it's an integer. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to make it number. And while I'm at it, I'll check. And now it comes in as long integer by default, but I want it to be just an integer. So there you go. We'll make it, because we know those numbers are not going to get that big. Big as far as the magnitude of them. So I'll make this an integer. And again, we're going to come back and set the other properties in a little while. And then this is an integer. Whoops, sorry, number, and then integer. All right. Okay. Short text field, and now this is a decimal field, okay? So in other words, these are integer fields, and these ones could have a decimal point on it. In fact, I'm going to have a decimal with 2 places on it. So on that one, I'm going to make it, again, a number, but I'm going to make it a decimal this time. And it has a, let me see if I remember how to do this. Just got to look at my notes really quick. It has a field size of decimal. Oh yeah, field size is decimal. And then the format is fixed. In other words, we're not going to have a variable length decimal part of this. It's going to be fixed. And the precision is going to be 2, or I'm sorry, the scale is going to be 2. Okay, truthfully, I've never had to deal with precision on these, okay? But precision has to do with mathematically, if there's ever a calculation on that number, how precise do you want, how many places to the right of the decimal point do you want to take into account? But it's only going to store 2 anyway. So I just leave it at 18 and I put 2 on there and we're ready to go. Now on the decimal places, it says auto, leave it at auto, okay? And that will be fine. So I think that I'm pretty sure that this is the setup for doing a decimal. All right, and we'll do the same thing on the next one. Number. And this is for the GPAs. I'm sorry, I should have expanded this out so you can see what the field is. These are for the GPAs. GPAs can be decimal, right? So we will have a decimal on that one. And the format, again, I'm hitting the drop down here. By the way, if you know what it starts with, you know, you could just say you could just do that. You could say F and it would put fixed in here, and then 2 for the scale. All right. Now we'll go to currency. This is a currency field. It's the matriculation fee. I'm going to say make it currency. Currency fields and number fields pretty much act exactly the same. It's just that you get values. You get a symbol on front of a currency. So I'm going to just make it currency. Currency is dollars in this case, okay? But it has euros, and there are other ones I think you could get to somewhere, but I've never done anything beyond those 2. Yeah, question.
So based on your notes, the GPA itself is supposed to be an integer, but you put it as
Did I really?
Yeah. Or
Oh, you know what? I got those backwards. I'm sorry about that. Thank you for pointing that out.
okay.
Yeah, the GPA actually should be decimal. It's the scale that should be integer. Yeah, because it doesn't go to a decimal point. It really does. I mean, you could do them either way. On this one, it's not critical on that. But yeah, you're right. The GPA should have been decimal. All right, I'll have to fix this. Sorry about that. Boy, how did I never notice that before? It was on the scale that I could have left that as integer. But I mean, yeah, may as well. Let's do it the way I did it. Let's make that integer, and I think that's good enough. Yeah. That should do it. Sorry about that. Okay, on the go back to the currency one, and there again we went 2 decimal points after it. So there on decimal, I'm just gonna make it 2. It's interesting that the other one it was scale, and on this one it's decimal. I'll have to double check that just to make sure. And then we have the matriculation date. So here we have another date time field. Let's put that in, date time. Okay, again, I'm going to go back and set the properties on these in a second. And then we go down here to this one that says student health notes. That could get huge. That could be a lot more than 255 characters. So I want to make that what's called long text. And that is another way. We also could call that a memo field. That's why you see mem on here. I let either one of those work because some database packages still refer to it as memo fields. But if you wanted to make that LXT, that's good. That works too. Or I'm sorry, LTX, that works too. But all the examples you'll see in this class, I think I use mem for that. All right. And then these ones, as I said, don't have to change. Now, there is one I need to add, but I'm going to do that after I do all the other ones and fill in their properties. All right. So right now, before you do anything else, though, I heard you. Save this. Okay. Don't lose your work. Save often. All right. When you save that, when you hit that save button, it saves whatever has the focus. And right now, this table in design view has the focus. Yeah. Go ahead.
So the last 3 fields, are those necessary for every single subject table? Was that what you were saying earlier?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's a point for some reason that I felt like it didn't fit, but maybe that's just me not understanding necessarily why they have to be there. Yeah,
they all on subjects. The reason for notes. Okay, since he asked, I'll explain right now. Okay, the reason for the notes field is sometimes you haven't thought of all the fields ahead of time, and that gives you a place, a free-form place where you could stick any notes about this record. Okay, what I tend to do is I put these in, and over time monitor it. And if I see that they're putting a certain kind of data in the notes all the time, I know I really need to have a field for it. Okay, so notes is just a nice free-form way of them adding whatever their information they want on a record. Okay, attachments, and the reason it's there is because you may want to attach something that has to do with that record. Okay, so maybe somebody sent you an email, or somebody sent you a Word document or a spreadsheet or something like that. You can attach it then there, and then it becomes part of the database. Again, I don't like this type of field. And by the way, I will show you later on how to take those out if you really, really, truly don't want them. But for the next few weeks, I want you to use those. I want those to be there, all right? And then the memstar data revisions. Okay, all these fields that we see above are really related to the Shocker ID, okay? Remember, all the fields that go in here have to be related to the alternate key fields. All right, so Shocker ID is my alternate key field, and it's basically the name for the person who owns that ID, the home for the person who has that ID, blah, 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 like that, okay? That's the values that I'll be putting in here. I wouldn't put a field that was, say, my professor's phone number. I've got a lot of professors, right? It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. That's data for a professor record somewhere. And then I would have a relationship to that one. But these are all about the Shocker ID. The one exception we allow in doing that is to have data about the record itself, okay? And so what this is, data revisions, it's a free-form field where if I make a change, like maybe I change their U.S. citizenship, I could go in there and say, put a date and say, on this date, I changed the citizenship to be USA or whatever, okay? And do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just asking because whenever I was going through, I didn't realize that you wanted those to be required in our subject tables. So when I was going through the assignment, it didn't seem intuitive, or I didn't understand why you wanted that there, and I thought it was just kind of in the way. So I got rid of it, and I submitted it without those. So I'm going to go back through it and put them in and then resubmit.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, just put them back in. It's no big deal. You just take it out of the subject table and copy them over. It's really easy. Okay.
All right,
I really want you to have them in there. Yeah, if you take them out on this one, I probably won't get that. I'll just tell you, you need to have them in there. I won't take off points for that, okay? Right? But but one of the things I see a lot is people thinking the star needs to be renamed to student. Don't do that. Don't take the star and make it student. What that means is that this is a universal, a standard, what I call a standard field. The standard fields are needed in order for the forms to work that are going to be working with this. Okay, so that's why it is. So I'm going to go back up to ShockerID now, okay, and we're going to put in the properties for the ShockerID. And again, it's a short text field. I've already given you the caption. You will fill this out. You will have to put those in all the time, the caption. You will also always put in the description. Yeah, it didn't need to be. It could have had a space there like that. That's fine. Like that. If I could say Shocker identifier if I wanted to. I could say WSU Shocker ID, whatever. But you have to put a caption in, and you have to put a description in on every field. You have to do that. Okay, so when you build your table, you're going to do those things. All right. Shocker ID. How many characters is it? It's always 8, right? A letter, 3 numbers, a letter, 3 numbers. Well, you know what? In the future, it could be 2 letters and 2 numbers, but it's always going to be 8. So we're going to say 8. All right. The other thing is, it's all those letters are required. We'll never have a 7-digit one. So there's a way to do this. And by the way, they're always capitalized. All right. The letters are always capitalized. So I could build a template on that field to make that happen. And the way I do that is I hit this greater than sign, and the greater than sign signals that everything that they are about to type, make it capital. Even if they type it lowercase, it'll convert it into capital. And then capital A, 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 8 times, capital A. All right, is that 8? Hard for me to see on this screen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, okay. Capital A means a alphanumeric character is required there. Lowercase a would mean an alphanumeric character is not required there. Okay, so if they were 7 or 8, I could have made it A and a little a. But the fact that they're all it's capitalized and they're all required, this is the template I'll use. And then you have to do this, 2 semicolons, okay? If you want to know these codes, all right, and there aren't too many codes that you're going to have to learn in this class, okay? And I'm not even going to ask you to memorize these, okay? But if you just want to know what those are, hit your F1, as you have your key, put your cursor in a thing, hit F1, and it should open up the help. I'm hoping you're seeing mine. And see, it actually opened up my browser and tells me what to do on a format property in Access. I could go to a text box. That's what this would be, basically, a text formatted thing. Hit that link. It's taking a while to open. And then here's my field, text and data memo field. And I know I had to go a little way to get there, but now it finally tells me what these things all mean. So here, force all characters to uppercase, and then down here it shows you what the different templates are that you can use and all that. That's actually the format one. So, and there's other ones. There's ones in here for numbers and for the date time field and for the S and O. Okay, but text is the one I tend to use the most. In fact, the other ones I tend not to use very often. I'm not going to require you to do other ones, but the text ones I typically will ask you to build certain templates just so you can learn how to do it.
Dr. Huffman?
Yes, hold on one second. Did I lose everything? Are you guys seeing this?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just curious, can't you also do like is like and then like question mark, blah, blah, blah in the validation rule? Does that also work?
Yeah, but that means they've typed it all out already and now you're testing it, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay, this makes them do it right from the get-go. All right, you're basically guiding them. The more help you give them, the better. Okay, you're right. Yeah, I could check to see is like, but I didn't want to get into that because we'll see is like when we do queries. Okay, I'd rather use it for those things. I think the format is a better way of doing it for entering data. Okay, all right. All right, student name, and I think that's it on that one. Yeah, there was no other properties. The name, okay, yeah, it's probably a little bit big. I probably will never see a name over 100 characters, so I'm going to bring it down.
Sorry, I have to cut you off again. You forgot the underscore.
Where at? Thank you. Okay, yeah, all right. So, yeah, thank you. The underscore, what that means is when they move into that field, they will see an underscore for each one of these characters, okay? So they will see an 8-character underscore. That doesn't mean the underscore is there. That just means it wants you to type something in there, and it's going to check what it is, all right? You could have used pound signs if you want to, or at signs, whatever. I always use underscore like that, all right?
I have a question as well.
Yes.
So, like, under the table specification, those are, like, under the input mask, but why do you put it under format?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Oh, thank you. My bad. My bad. Yes, it should be under input mask. I'm sorry. I do that a lot, guys. Be careful. That's very easy to do. Right. It should be under input mask. All right. This is called an input mask when you set up a template. All right. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, again, I tend to only use input masks on things like this, you know, like a code where I know it's all capital and it's always going to be a certain length, or on phone numbers, okay? Other things I don't use it for very often, and there's a good reason. I'll tell you about that when I get to dates, okay? Because it really does make an impact on dates, all right? Hey, thank you for that. I think, guys, if I ever typed anything in the wrong spot, let me know. I've done this so many times, I try to do it in my sleep, and it doesn't always work, so. All right, so 100 for the name, home address, 255 is a good size. We could leave it at that. Now, some people have asked me, what if I want to have a real detailed home address, you know, maybe multiple lines and all that? You can make this a long text field then, all right, a memo field, and do it that way. And then there is no restriction on the number of the field size. I should say, too, some people have asked me, how do I know what to set the field size? That's really up to you. Okay, on ShockerID, it made sense to have it at 8 because they're all 8. Name, you don't see names get that big, so you probably don't want a field size that big. Home addresses could get big, so I probably want to have as many characters as I can. It will, when you set up a text field, it will always make it 255 by default. If you wanted to leave it at 255, that works, okay? Because here's what's going to happen. Let's say I was doing a name, put a name in there, and it was more than 100 characters. What happens? It's going to stop me typing at 100. Now, I'll tell you, I've been doing this for a long time, and I actually had a student once who had something like 40 characters in his name. Yeah, but I've never seen anybody with 100, so I think I'm pretty safe with 100. You can always increase this, all right? In other words, after you're out there using data, you can always come back to the design view and add to it. And that should not change anything that was in there before. But if you ever decrease it and something is over that level that you decreased, it will actually truncate it then at that point. So be careful with this. Make sure you really set it at something you want to. If you wanted to leave it at 255, I would never take off points for that unless I actually told you, make it 8 characters only. Okay, and then I'll expect you to do what I did here. All right.
Is 255 the max for short text?
Yes. Yes, and that goes all the way back to the early days of databases. Okay, that's why we had text fields and memo fields. And then what happened a few years ago, they started calling them short text versus long text. Okay, but use short text for just text fields. Okay, only use long text when you know for sure you're going to have more than 255 or you want to give people unlimited space. Okay, because it takes up a lot of memory doing the long text fields. The short text fields don't take up as much memory. Okay, home region. Okay, now the home region is a state or something like that, you know, and all the home regions I know of are 2 characters. So we're going to make them 2 characters, and we're going to make them also uppercase, and we're going to limit it to 2. Okay, there will always be 2. There won't be less than 2. So we can do AA, and again, the 2 semicolons and an underscore, so that we have our template. So that template's done now. But again, I've got a lot of people going to Wichita State that are from Kansas. So I'm going to make this the default value on this Kansas. All right. And we're done with that. Now, again, there's other things to set on some of these. I'll come back to them after I get through this first page of, or these first 2 pages of settings. All right. The home country, this is interesting. 5 characters. And on this one, they range from having 2 characters to 5, but whatever characters they have are uppercase. So again, we're going to make it greater than AA, which means that everybody's going to have 2, right? But then the last 3 are optional. So if they have 5, you could put 5 in there. Otherwise, you can just stop at 2 and you could go on. Underscore. And for that one, we'll make the default USA. Okay, and I'm going to hit save right now because I've done a lot of typing. I don't want to lose what I've done. All right. Postal, let's see, postal code, I limited that to 25. Let me ask you something. Is there a template for zip codes? Yes, right? All zip codes in the United States are 5 digits, space, and then 4 other digits, right? I could put an input mask for that. Are all our students from the United States of America? No. And their postal codes are different, okay? So it's a smart move for us just to not do anything as far as an input mask goes on this field and just hope people type things in the right format. Now, if I really wanted to, later on when we do relationships, I could actually split that out into different kinds of postal codes. But right now, let's just leave one and just say it's 25. And then the campus address, this is 255, just leave it at that. The phone, all right? Now phones, it's a text field still, okay, but it's a text field of numbers. And we want those numbers to be numbers. We don't want any alphanumeric thing. Now I know there are some places where they still use letters and phone numbers, you know, not many places. Mostly it's we want to basically have a phone number that has an area code, 3 digits, a dash, and then 4 other digits. And truthfully, even though we want to see it that way, we don't want to we don't want to store the parentheses around the what's it called? Around the area code, and we don't want to store the dash that's between the regular number. So what I'm going to do is, on this one, Access actually gives us a little help. See this ... out here? Click on that, and it'll say Save Table First. Just say yes, okay? And one of the things in here is phone number. It's right at the top. Say Next, okay? And it shows it as 999-0000. Now what that means is the first 3 digits are optional. But then these ones are all required, and it's going to come up in that template like that. So if I click that and go on, and now I got an option. I could save. I could actually literally save those characters if I wanted to, those parentheses and that dash, or I could save the number without them. And that's what I tend to do, because I could always bring it back to look like that if I want to. Is that a lot? Is it going to save you a lot of memory? No, not at all, especially if you got a small database. But what if you're the IRS? You know, what if you're doing the census or something like that? You've got a lot of phone numbers. That could save you a significant amount of space over over the long haul. So we're going to say we're finished, and it puts the code in there, and I'm ready to go, right? Except I wanted to require that area code. And the code for that is 000, like that. So I could change it right here if I want to. Again, to find out what those mean, just put your cursor in there, hit F1. It'll take you out to the internet, and you'll see these codes and how they work. On all the things that we do, I should point out, if you really don't understand it, put your cursor in there, hit F1. It'll take you out to the Microsoft site and give you more explanation if you really aren't understanding it. The other thing you could do is just go out and Google it too and see what other people beside Microsoft are saying, because sometimes they give me even better information. All right. So I think I'm done then with the phone. Yep, I'm done with the phone. So now I'm going to go over to, and by the way, the phone number, actually, I'm sorry, I'm not done with the phone. The phone number is always going to be limited to 10 characters that I'm storing, right? So you see it, 3, 3, and 4, right? That's 10. So make it 10, and that's, and again, if you had it 255, it wouldn't make a difference, truthfully. I got to save it again. All right. So now I'm going to go on to this hyperlink field. What the hyperlink field does is just what you think. You could store a hyperlink in there. And then somebody clicks on that hyperlink, it takes you out to the internet. Or if the hyperlinks is something that is to deliver email, it'll take you out to the, you'll fire up whatever email program is associated with doing a mail address. So put either URL or an email address can go in here. You don't have to set any properties when you have a hyperlink field. All right. But again, I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm not going to tell you why, but hyperlinks I am not a fan of them. All right. There's a better way to do this, but rather than tell you that now, I will just really confuse you. When we get to forms, I will show you another way of doing hyperlink fields. Or I'll do that when I get to applications. But every now and then I will ask you to do a hyperlink field, and all you have to do is just make it hyperlink and go. All right. Gender is short text. And it is male or female. So we're only going to look for one character, M or F. We want this to be an M or F that's going to go in here. And I will make that input mask greater than an A. And just like we did. So we're going to expect one character, and it'll be M or F, all right? Right now, the way this is, they could put any one character in there. We're going to have to trust them that they're going to do the right one. But next week, when we start doing category relationships, we're going to show how to actually constrain that field to be either M or F, or male or female, actually, is how I would do it. So, all right.
Validation rules, we don't want to use those, or?
You could say equals to F or equals to M if you want to. You can. But I'm saying that there's even a better way than that, okay? Yeah, if you want to do it, feel free. You know, again, I wouldn't take off points if you tried something that there's a better way of doing it. But if you want to try to put a validation rule, feel free. And if you wanted to put a default on this, I don't think I would. If I'm talking about a school, we probably have equal numbers of each gender. And here's one for you. Okay, I may as well get into it right now. We could have other genders depending on what country we're in, right? That's becoming a thing that you're seeing a lot these days. So you may want to have others that you build onto this. And again, there's an easier way of doing that when you do build it using creating what's called a category field to do this. All right, I want to go to birth date because I want to pick up the pace here a little bit, or else we're not going to make it here. Birth date is a short date. I could come up here and do short date. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, one of the problems in using an input mask, all right? I could go in and put an input mask right now for a date and make it space, slash, maybe 4, okay? And that'd be fine. The truth is the short time, I'm sorry, this is short time, it should say short date. The short date will do the same thing, okay, number one. Number two, when you put an input mask on a field, it overrides all the other formats that are going on there. And I don't know why Microsoft did that. But you see down here where it says show date picker for dates? Remember how that little thing popped up that had the date picker on it? I could go through a calendar and actually find the date, pick it, and then it puts it in there. Okay. if I put an input mask on this right now, that wouldn't work. I don't know why they did that, all right? So don't put an input mask on dates. It just doesn't serve anything. Now, something I do want to ask you, though. Would it even make sense to have an input, a date picker on this field? I mean, I had one, and that's fine. If you want to put it on there, that's great. But aren't most of the people like born like 18, 20, 18, 28, 38, 58 years ago that are going to school here?
Far.
Right? Yeah. Would you want to page through all those years and months? Not me. You know, I think I would just want to type in the date. And of course, you could always do that the way it is right now too. I guess it's nice to have it if you decide to use it. But if you don't want it, you could turn it off. You just say never, and it'll go away then, and it won't be shown there. So just something for you, just for your information. Okay. Now we go to the yes/no field, and again, one of those fields you have to be very careful of, okay? Yes, no is just as it sounds. It's a binary field. It's a logical thing. Either they are or they aren't, okay? But here's the problem with yes, no fields. What if I didn't put the data in there? Remember, I only have to put data in on fields that are required. Right now, the only required field I have in here is ShockerID. All right, now I will make the name a required field in a second. If I go up here, you'll see it. Well, I didn't even do that one yet. Let me do that one. Is not null. Boy, that should have been there already. Interesting. You must enter a Shocker ID. Okay, when you use the bowl object, that's already filled in. You just have to put the name of the subject in there. Let me save that. But that's the only one that's a required field right now, and I'll make name one in a second here too. But if I made that a required field, then they'd have to. Then I couldn't make it. Then how do I want to say this? They would have to check it yes and then uncheck it no. Believe it or not, okay. That's why you should never make a yes no a required field, because here's this thing: yes nos really have a third state, and that's unknown. The null, and that's what it comes up as default. It's not checked, but that doesn't mean it's no. And that's why I don't like using yes no fields unless I absolutely will have a case where it's always yes or no. All right, because you could always have that third unusual situation where you don't know what it is, you want to skip it, but then somebody later on goes in and does a query and says, bring back all the records for people who aren't U.S. citizens, and now things that will come back that you really didn't know because it looks like it's no as far as the value of the field goes. Does that make sense? How do I know if you're saying yes? I'm just going to assume that makes sense, all right?
Yes. Is it something where we could set the default value to null?
No, you can set it to yes or no, and that's it. That's it. I know it's terrible. You know, some of the newer, more advanced databases have what they call a three-state yes and no, but I have yet to figure out how to truly make that work with Access. Now, I know there's a way programmatically to remove the value, and what it does is it grays the box that's in there to make it indicate that it doesn't have a value anymore. But I don't think it comes up like that by default. You know, when you add a new record, I think it comes up no basically by default. You know, so
yeah, when I was programming things like this in the forms that I was doing a year ago, I wasn't having problems with yes and no's needing or having like a random default value. I remember I had a way, at least within the code, the way I was doing it, where I didn't have to worry about that third state.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When you do it in code, you get a third state. You know, in fact, I'm going to try it. Don't you guys do this? But I'm going to turn off that no as the default value and see what happens. It may. In fact, I'm going to go over there right now. You guys stay where you're. If you guys are doing this along with me, stay where you're at. I'm going to go over there and see what happens when I go over and look at the yes/no field. You see, yeah, how about that? So that's how it looks when it doesn't have a value. But I click on it, and then when I unclick on it, see, I can't go back to that unknown. Once you click on it, it's going to go back and forth between yes or no. But until you do, it's blacked out. So that's the null value. And yeah, programmatically, you could set it back, but you know, from a person entering the data right here, right now, we can't. Once it's clicked, it's clicked. Interesting. I just learned something. That's good. Yeah, I know. I'm getting out of here. Get out of here. Okay. All right. So we're back. All right. So I think that was all I had to say on that one. Yep. So then when we're on the SAT score, I don't think I had anything new I had to set on that or any. Yeah, I think all these, the rest of these are pretty much done, I think. We have a matriculation date that also needs to be a short date. And again, I'll use the picker for that one. All right. So I think I got, oh no, and I got a couple on the degree that I have to set yet. So let's do it. What the heck? 5, even though I think you guys know how to do this by now. Every degree has, I'm sorry, every department has at least 3 letters, all capital, but some go up to 5. So we're going to do that. Here's one on the, that's something I meant to do on the matriculation date. I want it to be today's date. So whenever I put a record in for the student, I want it to say today's date is its matriculation date. You could override that, but it's just going to be the default value. And I could do that by saying now, the function now, and it'll put today's date in there then. And again, I will add a validation rule on these too. All right. So we got the department, and we just need a degree. All right. So then the degree, did I have the right number, right size? I have 5. And on degree, I need 3. And there again, we have every degree has at least 2 letters on it. We'll make them capital, but some have 3. So that's kind of things you have to think about. Why are we doing all this work? To make it easier on the person that's actually entering data. And I'm going to say that the default degree is a BS degree. That's the one we give out the most in the university. So we'll leave it at that, okay? All right. Now, I did mention, save it. I did mention before that there is a field in here that's not in here, and I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to come down here at the bottom, and I'm going to create a field ATT star, I'm sorry, not star, student dash photos, and make it an attachment field. And just put a description photos and a caption photos. Okay. What the attachment field does, as I mentioned before, is it allows you to put anything. It could be an image, it could be a Word document, a spreadsheet, an email, whatever. Something that's in a file basically could be attached to this, and the file actually becomes part of the database, all right? The one thing that attachment fields do that no other field does is it can let you do multiples in the same field. So that's why I used plural on these, where I didn't do that on any of the other ones above it. Notes and attachments are the only places where I actually always say plural, because you get multiple notes in the same field, and you get multiple attachments in the same attachment field. All right, and I'll actually do that for you sometime here soon. But the reason I did this separately is because sometimes you do this and it screws up everything, okay? Save it right now if you just did that. And if it saved, fine, great. If it gave you an error message, this is what could happen. And that's why I don't like attachment fields very much. The other thing is you can't change the type once it's been set. That's one of the reasons why I didn't put it in here, because I wanted to make it attachment. If I had made it short text and then you tried to change it to attachment, it wouldn't let you do it. Okay, you cannot, and I can't change it back to short text now if I wanted to. All right, these other fields could be changed if I needed to, but this one, the attachment fields, you cannot change. Yet another reason why I'm not a big fan of them. All right, so haven't done all that. Now we're going to go back and we're going to put our validation rules in where we're needed. And I am not going to have time to do all these, I don't think. So I'm just going to do a few of them, and you're going to do the rest of them. And of course, I did do them all in the tutorial video that I have with this, okay? So as I mentioned before, we have 2 fields in here that are required. The ShockerID, because it's the alternate key field, and it is always going to be required. And again, to do require, we do is not null, and you must enter a ShockerID. We always leave required, though, no. No matter what field it is, we're going to let this override it. We'll let this be the thing to govern whether or not they actually put something in the field. And the reason we do that, it gives us a very cryptic, it gives us a very readable error message if they don't do it. If you just use this, it'd be very cryptic. And oh, by the way, I also found out if you were to set this to yes right now and they did it, you would get 2 error messages. So just don't do it. Just don't set required, okay? Another one that people ask me about is this allows 0 length, okay? Always have it set to no. If you put a new field in and it's yes, turn it to no. It always needs to be no. I've said this before. The reason for this, I'm going to try to explain this, but I'm not going to go into great depth, okay? In the old days, there was no such thing as a null value, all right? If you went through a field, it would put what's called a 0 length string in there, okay? In other words, think about it as if you set a variable equal to quotation mark with no space in between it, okay? It actually does assign a string to that variable, but there's no length to it, okay? When you say allow 0 lengths, it allows that to happen. Why is that bad? Because later on when you do a query and you want to find all the fields that have null values in it, that won't come back. Or if you want to find the fields that do have a value in it, that one will come back and you probably don't want it to, okay? All right, now I know you don't know what that means to do a query and all that, but that's a way that we could actually bring back sets of records in a way that's highly constrained, okay? And we'll see that as we go through this, okay? But just trust me for now that you want that to be set to no. You want to allow 0 length to always be set to no. It's a real problem. The reason it was done that, the reason why it's still in here after all these years is, believe it or not, there are old databases in here that people try to port over to Access, and it has 0 length strings in where nulls ought to be. And if you try to bring it in, and this is set, sometimes if you're trying to do that, bring in those, then you want to set it to yes. But we will never do anything like that. I don't know anybody in the world who's ever done it. I've never done it. I have one database a long, long time ago that had that situation. And what I did is I just went through and I replaced all the 0 length strings. I basically deleted them. Did a clear contents. I used the spreadsheet, did a clear contents on it, and then those became null values. So you really want a null value to be a null value. You don't want it to be anything else. And that's one of the ways that you can force it to happen. All right, the other field that I want to have requirement to put in is their name. So I'm going to say is not null. Whoops. Not null. And you must enter a name. Now you could say whatever you want as far as the validation rule, but make it something that means something. If you want to be friendly, say, please enter a name, please enter a student's name, please enter a student's name, and I'll take you to lunch or something. Feel free. Do what you want to do, okay? But you have to have a message. Don't just put in the validation rule and then have it open up a blank window, and it'll open up a window that says nothing, and people go, what the heck does that mean? So this is your way of making your application smarter, helping the end user out and doing what they need to do. On the birth date, I'm going down to the birth date now. We did one of these last week where we had a validation rule for a range of dates, okay? I want to say that it's between, by the way, you could type it whatever way you want. You can do lowercase, it will convert it anyway. Between, and again, on dates, you have to signal that you're using a date by doing a #, hashtag, if you will, 01-01-1900, and the function now. So it'll allow me to put any date that's between January 1st, 1900 and today's date, basically. And then I want a thing that says the birth date must be valid. You can be a little bit more descriptive. You could say between these dates, whatever you want. It's up to you. All right. Okay, now I'm going to go down the SAT score. All right.
Yeah. Quick question.
Go ahead.
If I wanted to have a date that was a year from now in the future, so I could do a future date, how would I do that?
Plus 365.
So it'd be the amount of days.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
if you wanted to do now minus 8,000 and now plus 365, you could do that. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Think about this as a function that's going to be evaluated in the background, okay? So any math you do here will happen, okay? Now notice though, I didn't say DTM student dash birth date equals, okay? It knows it belongs to this field, okay? So think about this as being what's on the right side of your equal sign, okay? That's what's going to try to assign here, or test, I should say. It's really, it's more like an if statement. This is what, I'm testing this if statement to see what the birth date is.
So if I wanted to do like a time on top of that as well, it would just be a decimal of a day.
Yeah, but here's the problem. Right now it's short date, you know, so it's going rounded to date. You'd have to make it a date time field like this, okay?
Okay.
And yeah, I think decimal is how you do the time then.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that's how the software
Yeah,
works.
you know, I would highly recommend if you want to do anything crazy on a date, you go out and look on the internet, all right? Because I'll tell you the truth, I do them, it happens to me so rarely I forget how to do them. I always have to look them up myself, okay? But good question. All right, so now I want to go on to the SAT score. Now on here, you know, and I saw this, I actually probably should have done this a different way than I did it on this, but let's just do it for now. You notice it comes up with default 0. I could really make that, I could take that out, and that way it would stay no. Well, no, I guess I can't. Oh, it won't stay at the default. No wonder why I did it the way it is. Okay. All right. That's interesting because I would rather have that be null. I have to think about if there's a way to do it. But okay, let's assume that we're going to get a 0 in there whenever we bring up a record. All right. So now I want a validation rule that basically says the SAT score is between 600 and 2400. But the problem is, what if I don't know what the SAT score is? All right, it's going to have 0 in here, right? Because I got a 0 default. So I have to account for that too. So I'm going to say 0 or between 600 and 2400. So it goes in order, okay? It's going to evaluate 0 and then say, okay, now I got the or, and then the between, and then these two together. So kind of think about it, it's going to say, think of between as being a function, and I'm giving it 600 and 2400, and it's an inclusive function, obviously, all right? And then that's evaluated, and then I do a comparison of 0 to that, okay? That's how it works, okay? But you say it this way. Microsoft tried to build a English-like syntax for doing this. So this is how we do this one. And then I got the SAT score value is out of range. And you can see what I have there on the validation text. You just mimic that because I got to get going here. So do that on the ACT score and then GED score. Now I'm going to go to the decimal, and on decimal, I want to basically say it can't be negative. So I just say greater than or equal to 0. If you want to say 0.00 because it's decimal, feel free. You can do that. And then again, make sure you put your validation text in. And then on the matriculation date, same time thing. I would put between. I actually did that between now minus 1000 and now is on that one. So I actually did one of those where I did a different one on it. All right. And again, you guys, I think you get by now how to do these. You know, you've seen me do it. You've done it yourself and the thing. I think you get how to do it. The one I do want to point out, though, that is different is the table validation rule. And this is probably the thing I'd have to take off the most points for when I do things because people just want to ignore it all the time. Sometimes you will have fields that have a little bit of a relationship to each other. For instance, the GPA that a student can have should not exceed the scale of whatever the school had +1. Why +1? Because some of them have honors classes and they give you an extra point, right? So I want to make a validation rule that actually says that. And to do that, I open up what was called the property sheet for the table. Just as each of these fields had their properties, the table itself has properties. And what you'll always, the only ones you'll ever have to use in this class are the validation rule and the validation text. So the validation rule, to get that, I just hit a square bracket, and now that indicates to Access that I'm about to type in a field name. And then start typing it, and what should happen is it'll actually search for something that starts with that. So what I want to do is I want to say is the secondary school GPA that the student had And so I could just double click that now and it'll put it in there. And I just put my cursor at the end of it. Is less than or equal to, and again, square bracket, DEC, and I'll take the second one, and now I've got that rule. So in other words, I'm saying that it has to be less than or equal to, and by the way, that should be, there we go. Okay, it should be less than or equal to whatever the GPA of that scale is at school plus 1, all right? And then I could have a validation rule that says the student's secondary GPA exceeds that for the school. And that's an indicator. That will pop up in the error message then that they've actually made an error. Excuse my mistyping. So I got to get going here because I want to show you a couple things before we end class here. Okay. Again, I could go back. Hopefully I saved that. I could go back. I can open that up in design view then, and I could start using those things. You see if I go over here to ShockerID, why did it come up showing AAA? That should not have happened. How did that happen? Input. Oh, it put literal characters in there. You see that quotation mark? That should not be there. You know why it did that? Because I copied it from format down to here, and it put those in there. It actually shows, you can show literal characters if you want to, but I just want to show that I want to type in all caps. Okay, so now I go in here and you see how I got my underscores. And I'm actually going, I'm typing lowercase right now. Let's see what happens. It converted it uppercase, right? Name, address, home city, these come in. It says I need to enter a name. Yeah, it's right. Okay. Postal code, didn't have anything there. But anyway, you get the idea here. If I get out here to the phone number and I activate that, it's got the template to do that. Gender, I could put male or female in there like I had. The birth date, and I click on something there and do it, or I could start typing it in. And I think as soon as I start typing it, it puts those slashes in there too. U.S. citizen. So on SAT score, if I put 88 in here, it'll say, no, that's out of range. That's too low, obviously. If I put 8,000 on there, it'll say, no, that's out of range. But if I put 1,200, yeah, and then lets me go on. Pretty cool, huh? So here's your rule of thumb. Put this in your mind and remember it, okay? And this was said several times in the lesson. There are 3 types of fields that will always need a validation rule. Almost always, I should say. There may be some times that you don't have to. But on number fields, you almost always want to have a validation rule to basically constrain the range, even if that is only to make it positive or to make it negative if it's supposed to be always a negative number. You always want a validation rule on a number field and on a currency field. Same reason, okay? Most of the time, you want to have a validation rule on date fields to limit the range on date fields. Of course, any required field, you want to have a validation rule that says if not null. But other than that, it's up to you pretty much. Now, sometimes I will ask you to build a validation rule on an assignment, and then I expect you to do that. But when you do your projects and all that, it's going to be up to you to decide what gets a validation rule on it, okay? On tables, the validation rule that I put on the table, sometimes usually I will tell you what I want you to make a validation rule on, all right? If you want to make one of your own, feel free, okay? One of the things people have asked me is, what if I got another comparison of 2 other fields? You could do and then have those fields in here, but you only get one validation text, and that's one of the problems. You got it. So you might just have to say that field's an error, and do the best you can to give them some other kind of indication about what else could be going on. But if you wanted to make but basically it's a compound rule, you make and then you put that in there, and you can keep going. Okay, I've never seen anybody do more than 3. Okay, and after that, I think there's other things you could do to actually make things better. All right. Okay, so having said all that, I want to make sure. Now, somebody asked me about I have one of my formats on one of my deals. Oh man, I'm running out of time. If you looked at, is it solution 2? No, I don't think it was on that one. Oh, it was on the homework. Okay. If you look at the homework assignment and you look at my compiled version on it, you see these at the bottom that are in red. Don't worry about that. Okay. I haven't shown you how to do that yet. All right. There is a way on the format to actually put a message on the screen. And I like to sometimes indicate when a field is unique and required or unique. It only works on text fields, as it turns out, and memo fields, long text fields. I will show you how to do that next time if you're interested, okay? Actually, what I'll do is I'll send you an email for those of you that are interested on how to do that. But I do not require that you do that ever, all right? Let me go through my notes really quick to make sure I didn't miss anything about this. There is one other thing I wanted to show you on long text fields, or actually on any text field. You can go in, you know, I have to open this up. I have to open this up in raw mode. Let me go back here. Let me go to one of my lab solutions. Okay, open it up from there. Yeah, let's do this one. Hopefully I got data in here. I think I do. All right, let me open that up in data sheet view. You might notice that on some of these, especially on the memo fields, the long text fields, you can put a lot in here and you may not be able to see it all from the data sheet. When that happens, all you have to do is do Shift F2 and it'll open up in what's called zoom mode and you can see more of it. That's true on any field, I think. You could do that. Any text field, it'll do that. So short text and long text fields, it will do that. Again, that was in the lesson notes somewhere. All right, so finishing up here, I just wanted to talk about the first assignment. I went over that the other night in class. I know that was a little fast for some of you. Just want to point out a couple things really quick, because this will be due next Monday now. And I want you to use these files, A0101 your name, A0102 your name. Don't make your own files. Don't start from scratch. Use these files. The reason for that is there's other hidden objects in here that let me know if you really did the homework assignment or not, okay? There's also system-based stuff that I set that you don't know about, that nobody else could get to except me, that will let me know if you actually did this assignment. So any of you who are tempted to go ask your friends who took this class already to give you their homework and turn in their homework, I'm going to catch you, okay? I've got lots of ways to compare things, and I usually know this before I even have to open up your file if you cheated or not, all right? So just do your own work and you'll be fine. But what I want to show you on this one, okay, is that when you come in here and do this one, it says TBL subject. This is where you will build your own subject table, all right? I want you, for the second assignment, you pick whatever subject you want. You cannot do a vehicle. I'm sorry, you cannot do a student and you cannot do a vehicle, because the vehicle's in the first one and we just did a student one. Now, don't be a smart person and go in and take student off everything and just put person and think I'm going to give you credit for it, okay? I want you to build new fields, okay? And I gave you a specified number that I want you to build in the assignment. If I open it up in design view now, you'll see that, again, you got the primary key, you've got these 3 fields. Don't ever change them. This is where you set up your alternate key field. All you have to do is substitute the name of the subject, whatever your subject is, and then the name of the field, and everything else is set for you. You want to come down here, then you want to whatever you name that field, you want to say it in the description, you want to say it here in the caption, you want to say it here in the validation rule message, okay? Just substitute all these ones that are in curly bracket with the name of the field, basically, the alternate key field name, and you're set to go. You don't have to do anything else. It's already indexed above. It will show that for you. If you want to change these to be the name of your subject, feel free. You don't really need to. It'll fix the name of the fields, though, for you. I think that's it. Okay. Thursday is a lab. Let me close this down. Come back to you guys so you can see again. Hopefully enough of you stayed on. Okay. Thursday's a lab. I'm expecting you to do T0201A and T0201B with the Mastering Access videos. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry I ran a little bit long. Hopefully next time we'll keep to it. All right? If there's anything else I think of that I forgot to tell you, I will send you an email.
One question?
Yeah.
You said about if we wanted to know how to do that, you'd send people that wanted to know an email. So you want us to send you an email now, this week, before next week?
For what?
You were talking about the...
For the required text to show up.
Oh, I'm going to send it to you guys.
Okay.
I'm going to write an email. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you guys to have to contact me. No, I'm just going to type up a little short description about how that gets there, okay? And what you need to do on it, all right? And I'll put that out on announcements.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I tried to do it for a memo field and it didn't work for some reason.
Really? You know, sometimes it does. Oh, I know why. It's rich text. If it's rich text, it won't work. If it's plain text, it will. Yeah. Josh is the one who figured out the issue with the date picker, you know, and I actually knew about that. Yeah, there are a lot of things in format and input mask that when you set it, it causes the other things not to work, okay? And that's why I'm very careful about that. Josh, I'll tell you the truth, and all of you, I'll tell you this. I like required and a message that says required and required unique, but I've been putting it in the caption lately rather than doing it on that field because some people see that and they think a value has actually been entered there already. And then they don't realize that they can put it in, okay? Because when we do forms later, you'll find it's there on the forms too, on those fields, on those controls, okay? So truthfully, I'm trying to get away from doing that and just putting it either on a caption on the form or on a caption in the data sheet to say it's required and unique, okay? Required and or unique, okay? Or if there's any other information, try to do it there, you know? I liked it when I first saw it. I thought, that's cool. I put a message on the screen, and then I started delivering these things, and people said, well, it says required. I don't have to put anything there, right? I said, yeah, it's trying to tell you you're supposed to put something there, you know? And they think something's there already. So I've been trying to get away from that, but almost all my examples that I'm using in this class has it in there. If you want to do it, you're free to do it, but I don't expect you to do it.
Okay.
Okay?
I also wanted to ask in A01-01, I think, you mentioned that we needed to put some sample data in there for attachments. Do you care how much or how little?
No, okay. I just want you to do it on one of them. You should test everything you build. All right? Always test your validation rules, test the required properties, test to make sure that your attachment fields are actually accepting data.
Okay.
Okay. But no, you can, if you want to just throw a JPEG in one of them, that's good enough for me. Okay. Yeah. Keep it small. Don't put a 18 gigabyte video in there. Okay. It's going to mess up everything. Trust me. Okay. And Aziz, if you can, next time we meet, remind me to talk about that a little bit, that there are size limitations on things. Okay. This shouldn't impact them on this particular assignment, but going forward, it will. Okay.
All
right.
That's based on the difference between now and today, since we touch on the dates different.
Yeah, date now and today do the same thing, all right? Except now gives you date and time, where date will just give you date, okay? Today, they have been dropping it. That's why I try not to use it, okay? In fact, you go to Excel, it doesn't exist anymore, all right? What you do is you save the file and it converts it to now, all right? So I expect the same thing's going to happen to Access. Sometime they'll drop today, all right? Anything else, guys? Thanks for staying around. I appreciate it.
One.
Yeah.
Due on Tuesday or Monday of next week?
Tuesday. Did I say Monday?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, I meant Tuesday at noon. Okay, I'll send everybody a note. I'll remind everybody. Sorry about that. Monday's a holiday, right?
Yeah.
So you'll have a whole day that you can work on this class. All right. Hey, guys, have a nice holiday weekend, okay? I know it's kind of a bummer. Not a whole lot we can do this year, but, you know, if it's a nice sunny day, lay out in the yard or something. That'll be nice. All right. And if you have any questions, just send me a note. Again, if you ask me something that I think everybody needs to know, I let everybody know it. Okay. So thank you.